Hello guys. Welcome to Pika Fiction. So in this video, we will see what if Ash became the master of trials and got a harem of all Alolan girls. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Outsider King. The humidity on Mele Mele Island was usually a comforting weight, a blanket of sea salt and sweet nectar that promised drowsy afternoons and vibrant sunsets. Today, however, the air inside the ruins of conflict felt less like a blanket and more like a shroud. Ash Ketchum sat at the center of the stone council table, his fingers interlaced, resting on the cool basalt. At 19, the sharp angles of his boyhood had settled into a lean, traveler's build. A thin white scar ran from his jawline down to his collarbone, a souvenir from a rockslide in Galar. And his eyes, once perpetually wide with wonder, now held the quiet, terrifying stillness of a deep ocean trench. He wasn't speaking. He didn't have to. Around him, the four kahunas of Alola shifted in their seats. Hala, the elder statesman, looked older than Ash remembered. The lines around his eyes had deepened into canyons of worry. Olivia, usually brimming with kinetic energy, was spinning a polished piece of diorite between her fingers, the clicking sound echoing off the cavern walls. Hapu sat with her arms crossed, staring daggers at the empty pedestal where Tapu Koko usually resided. And Nanu looked as if he were asleep, though Ash could see the tension in the set of the policeman's jaw. 3 months, Hapu said, her voice breaking the silence like a cracking branch. 3 months since the Guardians last answered a summons. The festivals are stalled. The island trials are in chaos. And the people are starting to look at the sky and wonder if the sun is going to come up tomorrow. The sun will rise, Ash said. His voice was calm, a low baritone that carried without effort. It always does. Metaphors won't feed the panic, boy, Nanu grumbled, finally opening one red-rimmed eye. The police stations are flooded with reports. Pokemon acting erratic. Tides shifting wrong. And now, this movement. The Iron Wick, Olivia murmured, dropping her stone. They're getting louder. Rallies in Heihea City. Graffiti in Malie. They're saying the Tapas have abandoned us because we've let the traditions rot. She hesitated, her eyes flicking toward Ash. Say it, Ash said gently. They say the Tapas left because we crowned an outsider as the master of trials, Hala finished, his voice heavy with regret. They claim your appointment 3 years ago was the insult that broke the covenant. Pikachu, perched on the back of Ash's stone chair, sparked. The yellow mouse was leaner now, too, battle-hardened, his fur bristling with a static charge that smelled of ozone. Ash reached back, scratching the sweet spot behind Pikachu's ear, silencing the sparks. They can say what they want, Ash said, standing up. The movement was fluid, devoid of wasted energy. But Tapu Koko gave me this mantle. Until he comes down here and takes it back, I'm doing the job. What's the status on the 10-carat hill anomaly? Before Hapu could answer, the heavy wooden doors of the ruin groaned open. The light from outside was blinding compared to the gloom of the council chamber. A silhouette stepped through, followed by 4 others. As his eyes adjusted, Ash recognized the swagger before he recognized the face. It was Koa. 3 years ago, Koa had been a promising challenger in the league preliminaries, a fire specialist with a penchant for theatrics. Now, he wore a stylized coat of matte gray tactical mesh, an orange sash tied around his waist. The symbol of a burning candle, the Iron Wick, was stitched over his heart. This is a closed session, Koa, Hala boomed, standing up. You have no business here. I have every business here, grandfather, Koa replied, his voice smooth, polished by months of speeches. He walked into the room, ignoring the kahunas and fixing his gaze solely on Ash. We're discussing the fate of Alola. Why is a Kanto tourist leading the discussion? Ash didn't blink. He didn't step back. He just watched Koa with that unnerving calm. I'm leading it because I'm the one who stopped the Ultra Beasts from eating your home. What do you want, Koa? I want you to step down, Koa said, stopping 5 feet from Ash. The air between them shimmered with heat. The Tapas are gone. The barrier between worlds is thinning. We need a leader who shares blood with this land. Someone the spirits recognize. And that's you? Ash asked. It's not him, Nanu scoffed. Koa smirked. I'm the voice of the people you're ignoring. But I'm fair. I know you're the champion. I know you can battle. But being the master of trials isn't about how hard your Pokemon can hit. It's about your spirit. Your connection to the energy of this region. Koa gestured toward the open door, toward the distant peaks of 10-Carat Hill. A violet mist has settled in the farthest hollow, Koa announced, his voice rising for the benefit of the kahunas. It's a concentration of Ultra Aura. Toxic to Pokemon. Disorienting to humans. It twists the mind, Ash. It shows you your failures. It breaks the weak. Ash looked toward the door. He could feel it from here, a faint, sickly hum vibrating in the air. It tasted like metallic copper on his tongue. The Iron Wick challenges you, Koa said. Not a battle. A walk. Enter the hollow. Reach the central pedestal. Retrieve the Z crystal I left there. Do it without your Pokemon. Do it alone. That's suicide, Olivia snapped, slamming her hands on the table. That level of ultra exposure without a suit? It could scramble his neural pathways. If he is the master, Koa whispered, leaning in, the land will protect him. If he is a fraud, well, Alola will chew him up. The room fell silent. The kahunas looked to Ash, ready to intervene, ready to throw Koa out. Ash looked down at Pikachu. Buddy, stay with Hala. Pikachu tilted his head, ears drooping. I need to do this, Ash said softly. He looked back at Koa. The younger Ash might have shouted, might have made a speech about friendship. This Ash simply nodded. I'll be back in an hour. Have the tea ready, Hala. He walked past Koa without breaking stride, heading out into the blinding tropical sun. The walk to Hau'oli City was usually a vibrant parade of tourists and market stalls, but the atmosphere had shifted. The sky was a shade too pale, a washed-out azure that made the palm trees look gray. As Ash moved through the streets, people stopped. Some waved, children mostly, who still saw him as the hero on the cereal boxes, but the adults whispered. He felt their eyes. The outsider. He needed to center himself. He turned down a side alley, navigating the maze of backstreets by memory until the smell hit him. Roasted pineapple berries, spicy mango glaze, and the earthy, grounding scent of fresh bread. Aina's kitchen was closed for the afternoon lull, the shutters drawn against the heat. Ash tried the back door. It was unlocked. He stepped into the cool, dim interior. The kitchen was a clutter of hanging copper pots and drying herbs. Mallow was there, standing over a simmering stockpot, her green hair tied back in a messy bun, a smudge of flour on her cheek. She didn't turn around. You're late. I thought the council meeting would be over an hour ago. Koa crashed the party, Ash said, leaning against the doorframe. The tension in his shoulders, which he had held tight in front of the kahunas, finally unspooled. Mallow froze. She turned slowly, the ladle dripping broth onto the floor. Her eyes, warm, intelligent, and fiercely protective, scanned him for injuries. Finding none, she let out a breath she seemed to have been holding all day. Koa, she spat the name like a curse. That radical, what did he want? He challenged me, and you said no? Ash gave her a lopsided, apologetic smile. Ash. Mallow threw the ladle into the sink with a clang. She marched over to him, wiping her hands on her apron. She stopped inches from him, looking up. The height difference was negligible now. He had grown, but she still commanded the space. You don't have to prove anything to him. You're the champion. It's not about the title, Mallow, Ash said, his voice dropping. He reached out, his hand hovering for a moment before resting on her shoulder. Her skin was warm. If I don't do this, the Iron Wick wins the narrative. They need to see that I'm not afraid of the land. That I'm not afraid of the Ultra Aura. Mallow searched his face. She saw the exhaustion etched under his eyes, the sleepless nights spent patrolling the rifts, the weight of a crown he never asked for. She hated it. She hated that he had to be a god when all she wanted was for him to be a man. But she also knew him. She knew that trying to stop Ash Ketchum from doing the dangerous, heroic thing was like trying to stop the tide. Her expression softened. She reached up, her hand cupping his jaw, her thumb tracing the line of his scar. You're an idiot, she whispered, but the words were wrapped in affection. I know. Sit. She pointed to a stool by the prep island. Ash sat Mallow, moved with the efficiency of a master craftsman. She pulled a bowl from the rack, ladled out a portion of the thick, aromatic stew, and garnished it with a pinch of crushed revival herb. She slid it across the wood to him, along with a glass of iced moo milk. Eat, she commanded. If you're going to walk into a toxic death cloud, you're not doing it on an empty stomach. Ash took a spoonful. The flavor exploded in his mouth, spicy, savory, and deeply comforting. It tasted like home. It tasted like her. Thanks, Mallow, he murmured, the food settling the knot of anxiety in his stomach. Just come back, she said, turning back to the stove so he wouldn't see the fear in her eyes. I'm trying a new recipe for dinner. If you're not here to taste test it, I'm feeding it to Lycanroc. I'll be back, Ash promised. Save me a plate. 10-Carat Hill loomed like a jagged tooth against the skyline. The usual sounds of Rockruff skittering over stones and Carbink clattering against the walls were gone. The silence was absolute. Ash stood at the entrance to the farthest hollow. The natural bowl of the crater was filled with a thick, swirling mist, violet and iridescent. It didn't move like natural fog. It pulsed, expanding and contracting like a breathing lung. Koa was waiting at the trailhead, flanked by 2 of his lieutenants. A drone hovered overhead, broadcasting the feed to the nets. Rules are simple, Koa said, checking his watch. Go in. Get the crystal. Come out. If you vomit, pass out, or beg for help, you forfeit the title of master. Ash stripped off his Z-ring and handed it to one of Koa's bewildered lackeys. He removed his belt with his pokeballs and set it gently on a rock. Don't drop them, Ash warned, his voice dropping to a dangerous growl. He turned to the mist. He closed his eyes for a second, taking a deep breath. He didn't have Lucario's power, but years of training with Riley and the natural sensitivity he'd developed meant he wasn't blind. He could feel the aura of the land. A faint, rhythmic thrumming beneath his feet. He stepped in. The transition was instant. The moment the mist swallowed him, the temperature plummeted. The sound of the wind vanished, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in his ears. The air tasted like battery acid. Ash coughed, pulling the collar of his shirt up over his nose. His vision blurred. The violet fog wasn't just obscuring his sight. It was playing tricks on it. Shadows danced in his peripheral vision. Images of the past. He saw the frozen wasteland of the Sinnoh League. He saw Pikachu turning to stone. He saw Lily leaving on that boat. Focus, he told himself. It's just noise. He pushed forward. The ground was uneven, slick with condensation. Every step was a battle against gravity that felt heavier here. The ultra aura pressed against his mind, a constant whispered suggestion to just lie down, just sleep, it's too hard. He walked for what felt like hours, though his internal clock told him it had been minutes. Suddenly, he stopped. He felt something. Not the hostility of the mist, but a frantic, jagged spike of fear. It was faint, buried under the static of the ultra energy, but it was human. Ash pivoted, veering off the path Koa had laid out. Hey, he shouted, his voice muffled by the fog. Is someone there? A whimper answered him to his left. Ash scrambled up a scree slope, his boots sliding on the loose rock. He crested a ridge and saw a small cavern entrance, partially blocked by a rockfall. The mist was pooling there, thick as soup. Huddled in the back of the shallow cave was a boy, no older than 10. He was clutching a shivering Rockruff, his face pale, eyes rolled back in terror. The aura was overwhelming him. Koa, Ash snarled under his breath. This wasn't just a trial, it was a trap, or worse, negligence. Ash slid down into the cavern. The boy flinched, lashing out blindly. Get away! The kid screamed. It's me, Ash said, projecting his voice with the same command he used on Charizard. It's Ash. Look at me. The boy blinked, recognition fighting through the haze. Champion. Yeah. You're okay. Ash knelt, checking the boy's pulse. Fast, Freddy. Ultra sickness. I just wanted to catch a Carbink, the boy sobbed. The mist came so fast, my Rockruff, he won't move. We're getting out of here. Ash stood up. He looked at the Rockruff. The Pokémon was paralyzed by the frequency of the aura. Ash didn't hesitate. He scooped the Rockruff up in one arm, tucking it against his chest. He extended his other hand to the boy. Can you walk? I feel dizzy. Climb on my back. It was a grueling request. The gravity in the Ultra Zone felt doubled. Carrying a 10-year-old and a Pokémon was a physical impossibility for most. But Ash Ketchum had held the weight of the world before. This was just a boy. He hoisted the kid onto his back. Hold tight. Don't look at the mist. Look at my neck. Count my steps. Ash began the descent. His legs burned. His lungs screamed for oxygen that wasn't tainted with metallic dust. The hallucinations grew worse. He saw Koa laughing. He saw the tapis dead. He saw himself, old and alone, a king of nothing. 1 step. 2 steps. 34. The boy whispered into his ear. Ash gritted his teeth. He flared his aura, a desperate, subconscious pulse of blue energy that pushed the violet mist back just an inch. Just enough to create a bubble of breathable air around them. He found the pedestal. The Z crystal, a piece of smoky quartz, sat there, mocking him. Ash shifted the rockruff, grabbed the crystal, and shoved it into his pocket. Almost there, he rasped. The exit was a circle of white light in the distance. Ash's vision was tunneling. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. But he didn't slow down. If anything, he sped up. He burst through the wall of mist, stumbling onto the grassy plain of the entrance. The fresh air hit him like a physical blow. He dropped to one knee, gasping, but he didn't fall. He gently lowered the boy to the grass, then the rockruff. Silence reigned. Koa stood there, his mouth slightly open. The drone hovered, buzzing loudly. The 2 lieutenants looked terrified. Ash stood up. He was covered in sweat, his clothes clinging to him, his face pale. But his eyes were burning. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the crystal. He didn't hand it to Koa. He tossed it at his feet. You left a civilian in there, Ash said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a terrifying weight. Koa blinked. What? No, we scanned the area. You didn't scan deep enough. Ash stepped forward. The lieutenants flinched back. This kid was trapped in a class 4 or a pocket. If I hadn't deviated, he would be brain dead in another hour. Ash pointed a finger at Koa's chest. You want to talk about being a master? A master protects his people. All of them. Even the ones who wander off the path. You set a trap to hurt me, and you almost killed a child. The drone zoomed in on Ash's face. The footage was going live to every screen in Alola. They saw the exhaustion, yes. But they also saw the rage. They saw the boy sitting up, safe. They saw the rockruff licking Ash's hand. Koa paled. He saw the comments scrolling on his wrist monitor. The narrative had flipped instantly. The outsider saved the kid. The Iron Wick was careless. I didn't know, Koa stammered. That's the problem, Ash said. He walked over to his belt, clipping it back on. He felt the familiar hum of his team, the connection re-establishing. He picked up his Z ring. He turned back to Koa. Clean up your mess, Koa, and get out of my sight before I decide to make this a battle. Ash turned his back on them. He knelt by the boy, checking his eyes again. You good, buddy? Yeah, the kid breathed, looking at Ash like he was Arceus incarnate. You glowed. In the mist. You were blue. Ash put a finger to his lips. Must have been a trick of the light. As Ash walked away, back toward the city, he felt a vibration in his pocket. It wasn't his Rotom phone. It was the Z crystal he had retrieved. He pulled it out. It wasn't smoky quartz anymore. Under the sunlight, the crystal shifted, turning a deep, swirling black with flecks of gold. It wasn't a type-specific crystal. It was something ancient. Something dormant. And for the first time that day, Ash felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mist. The Tapis hadn't gone silent because they were angry. They had gone silent because they were hiding. And whatever they were hiding from, Ash had just walked right through its front door. Chapter 1 End. Chapter 2, Tides of the Blue Moon. The ferry ride to Akala Island was usually a tour of paradise, sapphire waters, leaping mantine, and the distant, smoking majesty of Wella volcano. Today, the ocean looked like bruised iron. The waves were choppy, erratic, slapping against the hull of the boat with a violence that felt personal. Ash stood on the bow, gripping the railing. The spray hitting his face was cold, but it was the smell that bothered him. It didn't smell like salt. It smelled like ozone and dead fish. We're docking in 5 minutes, champion, the captain shouted over the wind. He looked nervous. I can't stay, though. The currents are pulling weird. If I stay docked, the hull might crack. Drop me and go, Ash yelled back. Don't linger. As the ferry lurched toward the Heihei City docks, Ash saw the scale of the problem. The harbor wasn't filled with boats, it was filled with bodies. Thousands of Pukamuku, Corsola, and Magikarp were washing ashore, thrashing weakly in the shallows or lying still on the concrete ramps. Ash vaulted over the railing before the ramp was fully lowered. His boots hit the wet wood with a heavy thud. He didn't run to the Pokemon Center. He ran toward the source of the chaos. Standing at the end of the pier, silhouetted against the darkening sky, was a figure holding a massive fishing rod like a spear. Lana. She had grown taller, her blue hair cropped shorter, sharper, framing a face that had lost its dreamy softness. She wore a heavy, waterproof trench coat over a tactical wetsuit. A Primarina floated in the water below her, not singing, but patrolling, its eyes scanning the murky depths. Lana, Ash called out, slowing his approach. She didn't turn. Her knuckles were white around the grip of her rod. "You're late, Ash. The tide is coming in, and it's bringing something rot with it." Ash stepped up beside her, looking down into the water. "How bad?" "Bad," Lana said, her voice flat, devoid of the bubbly humor she used to hide behind. "They're beaching themselves to escape the noise. There's a frequency underwater. We can't hear it, but it's driving them insane. It's liquefying their navigational organs." Source: Brooklet Hill. Upstream. Deep. Finally, she looked at him. Her eyes were the color of the deep sea, beautiful, but terrifyingly intense. "I'm going to kill whatever is doing this, Ash." Ash corrected. He unclipped 2 Pokeballs from his belt. "We're going to kill it." They moved inland, bypassing the panic in the city. The journey up toward Brooklet Hill was a slog through mud and rain that had begun to fall in sheets. Ash had released Lycanroc. The dusk-form wolf padded silently beside him, its red eyes glowing in the gloom, growling low in its throat every time the wind changed. Lana moved with a terrifying efficiency, her boots finding purchase on slick rocks where Ash slipped. "The Iron Wick," Ash said, wiping rain from his eyes. "Is this them?" "Koa has sympathizers on Akala," Lana replied, vaulting over a fallen log. "Fishermen who are tired of quotas. Sailors who want the old ways back. They think the Ultra Beasts are a punishment for our weakness. They've been planting devices. Lures, they call them. Lures. Tech. Supposed to draw in the blessings of the Ultra Space. Instead, they just poison the water." They reached the Totem's Den, the cascading series of waterfalls that fed the lower rivers. It was quiet. Too quiet. The usual roar of the falls was dampened by a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. "Stop," Ash hissed. Lycanroc froze, hackles raised. Down in the basin of the main lake, 3 men were setting up a tripod device on a small rock island. The device pulsed with a sickly violet light, the same color as the mist in 10-Carat Hill. It hummed, a sound that made Ash's teeth ache. "Mercenaries," Ash noted, judging by their stance and the heavy-duty belts. "Not trainers, hired guns." "They're trespassing in a sacred site," Lana said. She reached for a dive ball. "Araquanid." "Wait," Ash put a hand on her arm. "If we rush them, they might activate that thing fully. We need a distraction." Lana looked at his hand on her arm, then up to his eyes. A silent communication passed between them, a tactical accord forged in the fires of the Alola League. She nodded. "Incineroar," Ash whispered, tossing a ball into the air. The heel Pokemon materialized with a roar that shook the trees, fire belching from his belt. The rain sizzled into steam around him. "Darkest Lariat. Hit the water, not the men," Ash commanded. Incineroar spun, a tornado of fire and darkness, and slammed into the lake surface. The explosion of steam and water was massive, creating a blinding fog bank. "Go," Ash ordered. Lana and Ash moved as one. Lana dove into the water, sleek as a seal, her Araquanid forming a bubble around her head. Ash stayed on land, sprinting across the wet stones, Lycanroc keeping pace. The mercenaries were shouting, blinded by the steam. "Contact right." One screamed. Lycanroc was already there. Accelerock. The wolf became a blur of stone and fur, slamming into the first mercenary with the force of a cannonball. The man went down, his breath wheezing out. Ash slid into the clearing. He didn't use a Pokemon for the second man. He used his own momentum, checking the man's shoulder with his shoulder, sending him sprawling into the mud. "Stay down," Ash barked, his voice carrying the command of a general. The third man, panic in his eyes, slammed his hand onto the control panel of the device. "I'm turning it up. Stay back or I fry the whole lake." The violet light intensified. The hum turned into a shriek. Suddenly, the water behind the island exploded. It wasn't Lana. It was a monster. A wishy-washy, but not like any Ash had ever seen. It was in school form, but it was gargantuan, easily 50 feet long. And it wasn't blue. Its scales were a mottled, oily black, and its eyes burned with the violet ultra energy. It screamed, a sound of pure agony and rage. The mercenary who touched the machine didn't even have time to scream. The beast slammed its tail down, obliterating the rock island. The machine shattered. The mercenary was thrown into the churning water. "Lana!" Ash screamed. A water bubble surfaced 20 yards away. Lana was inside, her face pale. She pointed at the beast. "Ash, it's mutated. The energy is eating it alive. We have to knock it out to save it." The beast turned its massive head toward Ash. It gathered light in its maw, hydro pump, but infused with ultra energy. A beam of purple water tore through the air. Incineroar. Throat chop. Intercept. Incineroar didn't hesitate. He leapt, meeting the beam with a chop of dark energy, dissipating the worst of it, but the force still sent the tiger skidding back into the tree line. "It's too strong for a head-on assault," Lana yelled, her voice amplified by the bubble. "It's drawing power from the residual radiation of the broken lure." Ash's mind raced. The battlefield was water, Lana's domain. But the enemy was a tank. He needed to disrupt its coordination. School form relied on the synchronization of thousands of smaller fish. If he could break the sync. "Lana!" Ash shouted over the roar of the rain. "Can Primarina sing underwater?" "Yes, but the beast is too loud. Not if we make it listen." Ash looked at Lycanroc. "Stone Edge, in the water, box it in." Ash didn't need to explain the rest. He felt the connection snap into place. That rare, crystalline focus he only achieved in high-stakes battles. He wasn't just commanding his team, he was sensing Lana's. He could feel the rhythm of the tides in her Araquanid, the lung capacity of her Primarina. Lycanroc slammed his paws into the ground. Massive pillars of blue rock erupted from the lake bed, creating a cage around the thrashing monster. "Now, Lana, Primarina, Sparkling Aria." Ash didn't say use Sparkling Aria. He said Primarina, as if the Pokemon were his own. Lana didn't flinch at the breach of protocol. She flowed with him. "Do it, sing the song of the abyss." Primarina surfaced, riding a wave. She threw her head back and released a bubble that wasn't an attack, but a sound. A haunting, resonant melody that cut through the storm. The wishy-washy froze. The violet energy in its eyes flickered. The small fish comprising the school began to vibrate. "It's working," Lana cried, "but we need a finisher. Something to break the connection." Ash looked at Incineroar, who was shaking off the water, looking pissed. Then he looked at Pikachu, who had been waiting on his shoulder, vibrating with stored electricity. "We need lightning," Ash muttered. "But water conducts. I'll hit Lana's team." "Do it," Lana yelled. "My team knows the ground. Just aim true, catch him." She trusted him, with her Pokemon, with her life. Ash grinned, a feral, dangerous expression. "Pikachu. Thunderbolt. Use the Stone Edge pillars as conductors. Fry the sky, then drop it on the fish." Pikachu. Pikachu launched himself into the air, spinning. He didn't aim for the water. He aimed for the jagged tips of Lycanroc's Stone Edge pillars. The electricity arced between the rocks, creating a net of yellow lightning over the trapped beast. "Drop it." Ash swung his arm down. The cage of lightning collapsed, the water flashed white. The wishy-washy shrieked one last time, and then dissolved. The school form shattered. Thousands of tiny, unconscious fish floated to the surface, the violet glow fading from their eyes. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the panting of Incineroar and the steady drum of the rain. They found shelter in a dry lava tube overlooking the lake. A small fire, courtesy of Incineroar, crackled in the center. Ash sat against the wall, stripping off his soaked shirt to wring it out. His scar stood out starkly against his skin in the firelight. He was bruised, scraped, and exhausted, but the adrenaline was still humming in his veins. Lana sat opposite him, tending to a gash on her arm where a piece of shrapnel from the lure had grazed her. She was stitching it herself, her face a mask of concentration. "You're crazy," she said softly, tying off the suture. "Worked," Ash replied, tossing his shirt onto a rock to dry. He leaned back, watching her. "You were incredible out there, Lana. The way you moved Araquanid. I've never seen water obey a human like that." Lana paused. She looked up, her blue eyes reflecting the fire. "The ocean is lonely, Ash. It's big, and it's cold, and it doesn't care if you live or die. You have to be hard to survive it." She moved closer to the fire, shivering slightly despite her stoicism. "But when you fight..." She hesitated. "It's like the tide stops. You have this gravity. My Pokémon felt it. I felt it. It wasn't like I was fighting alone anymore." Ash reached across the small space. He didn't hug her. That wasn't Lana's style. He placed his hand over hers, the one resting on her knee. His hand was rough, calloused, and warm. "You're never fighting alone," Ash said fiercely. "Not while I'm master. I don't care what the Iron Wick says. I'm not going anywhere." Lana looked at his hand, then up to his face. The intensity in the cave shifted. It wasn't soft romance. It was the magnetic pull of two warriors who had just survived the impossible. "Good," she whispered. She turned her hand over, interlacing her fingers with his, gripping tight. "Because if you leave, I'll have to drag you back with a fishing hook." Ash chuckled, a low rumble. "I believe you." They sat in silence for a long time, the storm raging outside, safe in the warmth of the fire and each other's presence. An hour later, Ash was examining the debris of the lure they had salvaged. "This circuitry," Ash muttered, turning a charred microchip over in his hand. "I've seen this design before." "Iron Wick tech?" Lana asked, resting her head on her knees, watching him. "No," Ash said grimly. "This is older. Cleaner." He scraped off some soot, revealing a small, stylized logo etched into the gold plating. "A geometric shape. A stylized A, the Ether Foundation," Ash breathed. Lana stiffened. "Lily's family. This is old tech. Maybe stolen. Or," Ash trailed off, "or someone inside is selling it to Koa." Ash stood up, crushing the chip in his hand. The calm of the cave was gone, replaced by a cold resolve. "We need to go to the Ether Paradise," Ash said. "If Koa is using Lucamine's old research to tear open holes in the sky, then this isn't just a rebellion. It's an invasion," Lana finished, standing up and grabbing her harpoon. Ash looked out the cave entrance toward the north, where the artificial island of Ether Paradise floated on the horizon. "Lily," he whispered. He could feel it again, that vibration in his pocket from the Black Z crystal. It was pulsing faster now, like a heartbeat, warning him. The water was safe, but the white walls of paradise were about to be stained red. Chapter 2 End. Chapter 3. White noise. The Ether Paradise floated on the ocean like a pristine, white lotus, a monument to humanity's desire to curate nature. Usually, the artificial island hummed with the gentle, efficient sounds of conservation, the whir of filtration fans, the distant cries of rehabilitated Pokémon. Tonight, however, the island screamed. Ash landed his Corviknight on the main landing deck. The metal was slick with rain, but the air here felt dry, charged with static electricity that made the hair on his arms stand up. There was no greeting committee. The automated lights flickered with an irregular, jerky rhythm, buzzing like trapped flies. "Stay sharp," Ash murmured, recalling Corviknight. He walked into the main atrium. The receptionist desk was empty, a half-drunk cup of coffee still steaming on the counter. A chair was overturned. Beatst. The sound seemed to come from inside his own skull. It was a high-pitched whine, like a hearing test gone wrong. Ash winced, rubbing his temple. Pikachu hissed, his cheeks sparking not with aggression, but with irritation. "You feel it too, buddy?" They moved deeper. The elevators were dead, so Ash took the stairs, descending into the belly of the facility. The deeper he went, the colder it got. Frost began to web across the glass observation windows. When he reached the research sector, he found the source of the resistance. Lily stood in the center of the main control room. The room was a chaotic mess of holographic displays and sprawling cables. She was typing furiously, her fingers flying across 3 different keyboards. She wore her white dress, but it was stained with grease, and her usually immaculate hair was fraying at the edges. Around her, a dozen scientists were cowering, clutching clipboards or hiding behind consoles. Stabilize the field. Lily shouted, her voice cracking but authoritative. Sector 4 is phasing. If we lose the containment integrity, the bleed-through will become permanent. Director. One of the scientists yelled. The energy output is off the charts. It's not a wormhole, it's a tear. Ash stepped forward. Lily. She spun around. For a second, the mask of the director slipped. Her eyes were wide, dilated with terror, reflecting the chaotic red warnings on the screens. But seeing Ash, something anchored in her. She didn't smile, but her shoulders dropped an inch. Ash, she breathed. You came. Lana found the lure, Ash said, walking up to the console, ignoring the wary looks of the scientists. We found ether tech. I know, Lily said grimly. We've been tracking unauthorized inventory movements for weeks. Someone inside was smuggling old prototypes out. But that's the least of our problems now. She pointed to the main screen. It showed a camera feed from sub-level B, the deepest containment wing, where her mother had once kept the Ultra Beasts. The footage was distorted. The white walls of the corridor were warping, stretching like taffy, and there was a sound coming through the speakers. White noise. But inside the static, if one listened closely, there were voices. Thousands of them. The barrier between our dimension and the ultra space is eroding, Lily explained, her voice trembling slightly. It's not opening doors anymore. The walls are just dissolving. What's on the other side? Ash asked. Lily looked at him, and the fear in her eyes was absolute. Nothing. That's the problem. The ultra beasts are fleeing toward us. They're terrified. Suddenly, the facility shook. A deep, resonant boom echoed from the floor beneath them. The lights died completely, replaced by the crimson glow of emergency strobes. Breach in sub-level B. A technician screamed. I'm going down there, Ash said instantly. I'm coming with you, Lily said. She grabbed a modified Sylvally-grade containment drive from the desk. Lily, it's dangerous. It's my house, Ash, she snapped, her eyes flashing. And I'm the only one who knows the override codes. Don't treat me like a doll. Ash looked at her. He saw the trembling in her hands, but he also saw the steel in her spine. He nodded once. Stay behind me. Sub-level B was a nightmare. The air was freezing. Mist curled along the floor. The white noise was louder here, a physical pressure against the eardrums. As they walked down the corridor, reality seemed to glitch. Ash saw a door disappear and reappear 3 feet to the left. He saw a potted plant wither and turn into dust in seconds, then bloom again. Don't touch anything, Lily whispered, clutching the back of Ash's vest. The spatial coordinates are unstable. If you touch a wall while it shifts, you could lose a hand. They reached the main containment lab. The blast doors were buckled outward, as if something massive had slammed into them from the inside. Ash pushed through the gap. The room was filled with a violet fog, similar to 10 Carat Hill but far more potent. Floating in the center of the room were 3 entities. Nihilego. Jellyfish-like parasites made of glass and neurotoxins. They drifted aimlessly, their tentacles trailing through the air. Lily froze. Her breath hitched. The memories of her mother, possessed, twisted into a monster by these things, crashed into her. She took a stumbling step back, her hand flying to her mouth. No, she whimpered. Not them. Anything but them. The Nihilego sensed the fear. They turned, their faceless bells pulsing. They didn't attack. They drifted toward her, drawn to the psychic wound of her trauma. Ash didn't yell. He didn't panic. He stepped directly into Lily's line of sight, blocking the view of the beasts. Look at my back, Ash commanded calmly. Lily, look at the logo on my vest. Count the stitches. Ash, they're just Pokemon, confused Pokemon. I'm here, you're safe. Ash reached for a Pokeball, but he didn't choose a fighter, he chose a diplomat. Naganadel, I need you. With a flash of purple light, the Poison Pin Pokemon emerged. It had evolved from the playful Poipole he had released years ago. It was sleek, alien, and powerful. Naganadel hovered between Ash and the Nihilego, letting out a chittering, resonant cry. It waved its massive stinger, communicating in a language of gestures and pheromones. The Nihilego stopped. They seemed to converse, their bells flashing in complex patterns. What are they saying? Ash asked, his mind touching Naganadale's. The answer wasn't words. It was an image projected directly into Ash's brain. Darkness. A star that is not a star. A mouth that eats the light. Run. They're not invading, Ash realized aloud. They're refugees. Suddenly, the wall behind the Nihilego exploded. Debris showered the room. The violet fog was blown away by a concussive blast of heat. Through the smoke, tactical squads rappelled down from the ventilation shafts. They wore the gray armor of the Iron Wick. And striding through the hole in the wall was Koa. He looked worse than he had on Mele Mele. His eyes were bloodshot, manic. He wore a prototype gauntlet on his right arm, humming with stolen energy. "Get away from the specimens," Koa shouted, raising the gauntlet. "These beasts are the key to saving Alola, and I won't let a child and a traitor hide them." "Koa," Ash barked, shielding Lily. "Don't engage them, they're volatile." "They're weapons." Koa aimed the gauntlet. A beam of capture energy, red and jagged, shot out, hitting the lead Nihilego. The beast shrieked. The frequency shattered the glass of the observation deck. Chaos erupted. The other Nihilego went berserk, lashing out with acid spray. The Iron Wick soldiers opened fire with electric nets. "Lily, the containment drive," Ash yelled, grabbing her arm and pulling her behind a heavy console. "Can you lock the room down?" I can't." Lily was hyperventilating, the noise, the Nihilego, and the violence overwhelming her senses. "The system is unresponsive." Ash grabbed her shoulders. He ignored the laser fire zipping over their heads. He looked her dead in the eyes. "Lily. Listen to me. You are not a victim anymore. You're the director of the Ether Foundation. This is your lab. Take it back." Something in his voice, that absolute, unshakable belief, cut through the panic. Lily blinked. She saw Ash, not as a shield, but as a partner. She took a deep breath. Her expression hardened. "Cover me," she said. Lily stood up. She didn't run. She walked to the manual override panel on the wall, exposed to the crossfire. "Pikachu, Electro Web. Block the shots," Ash ordered. Pikachu leapt, spinning a net of electricity that caught the tranquilizer darts aimed at Lily. Ash turned to Koa. "You want to fight? Fine. Lucario?" The Aura Pokemon materialized. He didn't need orders. He sensed Ash's intent. Koa charged, his gauntlet crackling. He swung a punch capable of shattering concrete. Ash didn't use a Pokemon to block it. He stepped in, reading the telegraph with his own eyes. He ducked under the swing, his movement a blur, and swept Koa's legs. Koa hit the ground hard, but rolled away, firing an energy blast. Lucario deflected it with a bone rush. "You don't understand," Koa screamed, scrambling up. "It's coming. The Necro Star. We need their biology to build a shield." "You're hurting them," Ash countered, advancing. "Tormenting them won't save us." Behind them, Lily slammed the lever down. Containment field. Max. Massive energy pylons slammed up from the floor. A golden barrier encased the Nihilego, shielding them from the Iron Wick's nets. "Damn it." Koa cursed. He looked at the barrier, then at Ash, then at the structural integrity warnings flashing on his HUD. "Pull back. Grab the tech and go." The Iron Wick soldiers grabbed several crates of hard drives and prototype beast balls. Koa threw a smoke grenade, infused with stun spores. Ash coughed, covering his face. By the time the smoke cleared, the hole in the wall was empty. Koa was gone. But the room was stabilizing. The Nihilego, safe behind the gold barrier, had calmed down. Ash turned to Lily. She was leaning against the wall, sliding down to the floor, her legs giving out. The crisis was managed, but the silence that followed was heavy. Ash carried Lily. She refused to walk, her adrenaline crash leaving her shaking, up to the private residence on the top floor. The room was a stark contrast to the labs below. Plush carpets, soft lighting, the smell of vanilla and old books. It was a sanctuary. Ash set her down on the sofa. He went to the kitchenette, found a kettle, and started making tea. He moved with a domestic familiarity that felt strange after the violence of the basement. Lily watched him. She was hugging a pillow, her knuckles white. "I froze," she whispered. Ash didn't turn around immediately. He poured the water. "You rebooted." He walked over, Placing the mug on the table, he sat on the coffee table in front of her, so he was lower than her, looking up. I froze, she repeated, a tear slipping down her cheek. After everything I've learned, after my journey, I saw them, and I was a little girl again. Lily, Ash said softly. You walked through a firefight to pull a manual override lever. You saved those Nihilego from Koa. Because you told me to. No, because you could. Ash reached out and took her hands. They were cold. He let his own warmth seep into her. Fear doesn't go away, Ash said. I'm scared all the time. When I walked into that mist on Mele Mele, I was terrified. But being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing the job anyway. Lily looked at him. She saw the scars on his hands. She realized suddenly that the boy she had crushed on years ago had become a soldier, and he was tired. You're carrying too much, she whispered, shifting her grip to hold his hands back. I have help, Ash said, looking into her green eyes. I have you. Lily leaned forward. The distance between them closed. It wasn't a passionate, movie star kiss. She simply rested her forehead against his, closing her eyes. It was a gesture of profound trust, of sharing the mental load. The noise, she murmured against his skin. The white noise. It's a hunger, Ash. Whatever is coming. It wants to consume all the light in Alola. Then we'll fight in the dark, Ash promised. He pulled back slightly, brushing a stray hair from her face. Koa mentioned a necrostar, Ash said, his tone shifting back to business, though he didn't let go of her hands. And Naganadel showed me a vision of a black sun. Lily's eyes opened. Necrozma, but different, ancient. We need to secure the other islands, Ash said. Koa has the tech now. He's going to try to summon it, or bind it. He's going to Ulaula next. Lily nodded. She sat up straighter, the fragility replaced by a cool, sharp intelligence. Ulaula is Nanu's territory. And Acerola's, exactly, Ash stood up. It's dark there. Perpetual rain. Ghosts. If Koa wants to hide, that's where he'll go. Ash, Lily said. He paused at the door. Be careful. Ulaula isn't like the other islands. The boundary between the living and the dead is thin there. If you use your aura too much, you might not come back. Ash smiled, a fleeting, sad thing. I've been a ghost before, it wasn't so bad. He walked out, leaving Lily in the warmth of her room, but the cold dread in her stomach remained. She looked at the tea he had made her. It was perfect. She picked up her comms device. Gladian? It's me. Get the type. Null unit ready. We're going to war. Chapter 3 End. Chapter 4. Shadows of Ulaula. The rain on Ulaula Island didn't wash things clean. It just drove the grime deeper into the cracks. It was a cold, relentless downpour that smelled of wet asphalt and old rusting iron. Nanu leaned against the hood of his patrol car, shielding a cigarette from the drizzle with a cupped hand. He watched the perimeter wall of Po Town through a pair of heavy binoculars. The wall, once a haphazard barricade of stolen trucks and graffiti, had been reinforced. Steel plating, electrified razor wire, and automated sentry turrets now ringed the dilapidated town. It's a kill box, Nanu grunted, smoke curling from his nose. They've got overlapping fields of fire on the main gate. Snipers in the mansion windows. If we go in through the front, we're hamburger. Ash sat on the wet guardrail next to him, adjusting the straps of his gloves. He wasn't looking at the gate. He was looking at the sky, where the clouds were swirling in a tight, unnatural spiral directly over the shady house. We're not going in the front, Ash said. Oh, you planning to tunnel? Nanu scoffed. The ground is volcanic rock. You'd need an escadrille and 3 days. I'm going over the roof, Ash said, standing up. He released Gengar. The ghost type materialized with a wicked, toothy grin, dissolving halfway into the shadows of the rain. Gengar can phase me through the physical barriers. Once I'm inside, I disrupt their comms. You're going alone, Nanu stated. It wasn't a question. My officers aren't equipped for this, catch 'em. These Iron Wick kids. They're armed with military-grade tech now. That's why I'm going alone, Ash said. If things go wrong, I don't want anyone else in the blast radius. You talk like a martyr, Nanu spat, flicking his cigarette butt into a puddle. I hate martyrs. They make too much paperwork. Ash smirked, a flash of white teeth in the gloom. I'll try to keep the paperwork down. Give me 20 minutes. When the lights go out in the mansion, you breach. Don't die, kid. Ash didn't answer. He simply grabbed Gengar's arm. The ghost cackled, and they sank into the floor, vanishing into the shadow of the guardrail as if they had never existed. Traveling through the shadow plane was cold. It felt like swimming in ice water while wearing a wool coat. The world was grayscale and muffled. Ash could see the glowing thermal signatures of the Iron Wick guards patrolling the walls above him. He emerged in an alleyway behind the crumbling Pokemon Center inside Po Town. The rain was heavier here, thrumming against the corrugated metal roofs. The town was eerily silent. No music, no shouting Team Skull grunts. Just the rhythmic stomp of boots and the hum of generators. Ash moved. He didn't run. He flowed. Years of navigating forests, caves, and war zones had stripped away his clumsiness. He hugged the walls, timing his movements with the thunder. When a guard turned the corner, Ash didn't engage. He waited, breathless, pressed into a doorway until the patrol passed. He needed intel. He found it in the old thrifty Megamart ruins. The roof was gone, leaving the aisles exposed to the storm. The Iron Wick had set up a forward operating base here. Ash crouched on a rusted steel beam overlooking the main floor. Below, technicians were assembling a massive metallic ring. A gate. It was pulsing with that same sickly violet light he'd seen on Akala. It's not big enough for a legendary, Ash whispered to himself. What are they bringing through? Something hungry, a voice whispered right next to his ear. Ash didn't flinch. He turned his head slowly. Hanging upside down from the beam, her long purple hair defying gravity, was Acerola. She smiled, her eyes wide and cat-like, reflecting the violet light from below. A Mimikyu floated lazily by her shoulder. Hi, Ash, she giggled softly. You're loud, for a living person. Acerola, Ash breathed. Nanu said you were safe at the library. The library is boring, she said, flipping down to crouch beside him. She moved with the unnerving stillness of a ghost. The spirits here are screaming, Ash. They say the Wick men are trying to open a door to the belly. The belly. The place where things go to be eaten. She pointed a pale finger at the ring below. Koa is there. He looks wrong. His aura is all chewed up. Ash followed her gaze. Koa was standing by the control console. He had changed. The corruption Ash had seen at Ether Paradise had spread. The veins in Koa's neck were black, pulsing under his skin. He was twitching, muttering to himself. Initiate the sequence. Koa shrieked, his voice cracking. We need the Devourer. It's the only thing strong enough to eat the Necro Star. He's insane, Ash muttered. He thinks he can fight a cosmic horror with a black hole. Are we going to stop him? Acerola asked, tilting her head. We have to. Ash stood up on the beam. Gengar, Shadow Ball. Aim for the generator. Acerola, get the ghosts to spook the guards. Create chaos. Ooh, I love chaos. Acerola whistled. Suddenly, the shadows in the supermarket came alive. Poltergeists rattled the shelves. Shopping carts slammed into walls. The temperature dropped 20 degrees. Contact. A guard screamed. Ghost activity, everywhere. Gengar, now. Ash jumped. As he fell, he released Lucario, Aura Sphere. Ash landed in a crouch amidst the technicians, the impact splashing mud and rainwater. Lucario landed beside him, firing a sphere of blue energy that smashed into a rack of servers. Gengar's Shadow Ball hit the generator, plunging the site into darkness. It's the Master, someone yelled. Open fire. Flashlights cut through the gloom. Red laser sights danced on Ash's chest. Lucario, detect. Double team. Ash moved through the chaos of laser fire, dodging with preternatural reflexes honed by his bond with Lucario. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting to reach the console. He had to shut down the gate. He reached Koa. Koa spun around, his eyes glowing entirely purple. You're too late. I've already given it the scent. Koa slammed his fist onto a large red button. The metallic ring shrieked. The space inside it tore open. It wasn't a wormhole, it was a mouth. A massive, clawed hand made of black carapace reached through, gripping the edge of the metal ring. The metal groaned and twisted like paper. Then, the roar. It was a sound so low it vibrated in the marrow of Ash's bones. a sound of infinite, starving emptiness. Guzzlord. The Ultra Beast pulled itself through. It was titanic, towering over the ruins. Its massive maw, filled with rows of grinding teeth, opened wide. It didn't attack. It inhaled. The air rushed into its mouth. Debris, rocks, rain, everything was sucked in. Yes. Koa screamed, laughing maniacally. Eat the corruption, cleanse the island. The Guzzlord turned its eyeless head toward Koa. Two massive tongues lashed out, wrapping around the console, and the three technicians standing next to it. No! Ash yelled. Lucario! Extreme speed! Lucario blurred forward, snatching one technician from the tongue's grip, but the other two were dragged screaming into the maw. The beast clamped its jaws shut. Crunch. Silence. Koa stumbled back, horror finally piercing his madness. It ate them. It's not obeying the beacon. It doesn't have a master, Koa. Ash shouted over the wind. It's a force of nature. You just unleashed a hurricane in a grocery store. The Guzzlord roared again and began to thrash. It smashed through the ruined walls of the supermarket, heading toward the town center. It was eating the buildings. Chunks of concrete, rebar, and wood were vanishing into its gut. It's going to eat the whole island, Acerola whispered, appearing at Ash's elbow. She wasn't smiling anymore. The land is crying, Ash. Ash gritted his teeth. Physical attacks wouldn't work. This thing had HP stats that defied logic. He had to cut off its power source. The wormhole is still open. Ash pointed to the ring. The tear in space was feeding the Guzzlord energy. We have to close the gate. I can't, Koa whimpered, huddled on the ground. The controls are eaten. Then we do it the hard way. Ash looked at Acerola. Can you hold off the Wick soldiers? They're busy running, she said, pointing to the fleeing troops. I'll keep the ghosts focused on the beast. Distract it. Lucario, Gengar, Incineroar. Ash threw his third ball. Keep that thing busy, don't let it leave the perimeter. Ash turned back to the tear in space. It was pulsing violently. He could feel the ultra aura radiating from it, poisonous and heavy. He took a deep breath. He stripped off his gloves. What are you doing? Acerola asked, grabbing his wrist. Her hand was ice cold. I'm going to seal it, Ash said. With aura. Ash, no, she warned, her voice tightening. That's raw space-time. If you touch it with your soul, it might pull you inside out. If I don't, Ula Ula is gone. Ash stepped up to the ring. He closed his eyes. He visualized the energy inside him. The blue flame he had nurtured since the Tree of Beginning. He pushed it out, not as a sphere or a blast, but as a needle. He thrust his hands into the violet tear. Pain. It felt like sticking his hands into a blender. The void chewed at his aura, trying to drink him like a smoothie. Ash screamed, his back arching. Close. He roared. Close. Damn you. Blue light erupted from his body, fighting the violet glow. The tear began to shrink. The Guzzlord, sensing its tether was being cut, turned around. It screeched, abandoning the buildings to charge at Ash. Incineroar. Darkest Lariat. Hold it back, Incineroar roared, spinning into the massive beast's legs, but he was swatted aside like a toy. Ash fell to his knees. The drain was too much. His vision was graying out. He could feel himself slipping, not fainting, but fading. His physical form was becoming translucent. I can't. Ash gasped. It's too heavy. Suddenly, the coldness on his wrist returned. Acerola was there. She wasn't watching the monster. She was watching him. Her eyes were glowing a deep, spectral purple. I've got you, she whispered. She placed her other hand on his chest, directly over his heart. Spirits of Ula Ula, she chanted, her voice echoing with the sound of 1,000 whispers. Old kings. Lost sailors. Children of the rain. He is not yours yet. Push. Ash felt a surge of cold, dark energy flood into him. It wasn't evil. It was the weight of history. The island itself was lending him its strength. Together. Ash yelled. Blue aura and purple ghost light mixed. A massive shockwave blasted outward. The tear in space slammed shut with the sound of a thunderclap. The Guzzlord froze. Cut off from its dimension, its form began to destabilize. It flickered. Now. Ash shouted to his Pokémon. Hit it with everything. Z move or not, just hit it. Lucario, Incineroar, and Gengar launched a combined assault. Aura Sphere, Fire Blast, Shadow Ball. The attacks merged into a chaotic beam of destruction. The Guzzlord shrieked and dissolved, exploding into a cloud of harmless black smoke. Ash slumped forward, catching himself on the ruined console. He was gasping for air, his hands trembling uncontrollably. "You're still solid," Acerola observed, poking his cheek. "Good. Thanks to you," Ash wheezed. Before he could stand, a movement caught his eye. Koa. The leader of the Iron Wick was crawling toward the spot where the Guzzlord had vanished. He was staring at the ground, where a small, residual fracture in reality remained. A tiny singularity no bigger than a coin. "I saw it," Koa whispered, his voice trembling with ecstasy. "Through the gate. The God Eater. It's beautiful." "Koa, get back," Ash warned. Koa reached out to touch the singularity. "It wants me," Koa smiled. "It says I can be the vessel." The black veins on Koa's neck surged. The tiny singularity expanded instantly, not into a gate, but into a hand. A hand made of starlight and void. It grabbed Koa. He didn't scream. He looked peaceful. "Tell them," Koa whispered as his body began to stretch and warp. "Tell them the sun is dead." With a wet pop, Koa was pulled into the singularity. The fracture vanished. Ash stared at the empty spot. The rain pounded down, harder than ever. Nanu's voice crackled over the earpiece, tinny and distant. "Ketchum? The mansion lights are out. We're breaching. Status?" Ash looked at Acerola. She was staring at the spot where Koa had vanished, her expression unreadable. "Status is..." Ash swallowed the bile in his throat. "Hostiles neutralize. Target Koa is Mia." "Confirmed. Sit tight, kid. We're coming to scrape you off the pavement." Ash sat back against the cold steel beam. He looked at his hands. They were burned, faint intricate patterns like circuitry etched into his skin where the aura had overloaded. Acerola sat next to him. She leaned her head on his shoulder. She felt like a corpse, cold and still, but her presence was strangely comforting. "He's not gone," she whispered, tracing the burns on his hand with a cold finger. "Koa. He's not in the spirit world. I can't hear him." "Where is he then?" "Somewhere else," Acerola said, looking up at the dark, swirling clouds. "Somewhere where the ghosts are afraid to go." Ash closed his eyes. The victory felt hollow. They had stopped the invasion, but they had lost the soul of the rebellion to something far worse. "We need to go to Pony Island," Ash murmured, fatigue dragging him down. "The altar. If that thing is coming, that's where it will land." "Sleep now, King," Acerola hummed, a lullaby tune. "The dead will keep watch." For the first time in days, Ash slept, guarded by a girl who walked between worlds, while the rain of Ulaula tried to wash away the sins of the night. Chapter 4 End. Chapter 5. The Painted Trap. Pony Island was usually a place of rugged, untamed beauty. Canyons carved by ancient rivers and winds that smelled of dragon scales. But as Ash's boat docked at the Seafolk village, the island felt wrong. It wasn't the weather this time. The sky was clear. Too clear. The colors were oversaturated. The ocean was a blinding, neon turquoise. The grass was an aggressive, vibrating emerald. It looked less like reality and more like a painting where the artist had pressed too hard on the brush. "It hurts to look at," Lily murmured, shielding her eyes as she stepped off the gangplank behind Ash. She had insisted on coming, bringing the ether data they had salvaged. "Reality distortion," Ash said, his hand resting on Pikachu's head. Pikachu's ears were flat. The electric mouse was twitching, agitated by the sensory overload. "Koa, or whatever Koa has become, is here." They found Hapu at the edge of the village, arguing with a group of terrified tourists. The kahuna looked exhausted. Her Mudsdale was pacing nervously, kicking up clouds of dust that sparkled with unnatural glitter. "Ash!" Hapu shouted, relief washing over her face. "Thank the tapas. We're losing the interior. The canyon is changing." "Changing how?" Ash asked. "Go see Mina." Hapu pointed toward the houseboats. "She's the only one who can make sense of it. She's up at the entrance to Vast Pony Canyon." Mina was sitting on a large boulder at the canyon trailhead, her sketchbook open on her knees. She wasn't painting. She was staring at the landscape with a look of intense, analytical horror. Usually laid back to the point of lethargy, the fairy-type captain was vibrating with tension. Her Rabombi hovered protectively near her ear. "Hey, Ash," Mina said without turning around. "You like the new decor? I call it post-apocalyptic surrealism." Ash walked up beside her and looked into the canyon. He gasped. The canyon wasn't made of rock anymore. The walls were melting, dripping like wet wax. Gravity seemed optional. Boulders floated in midair, rotating slowly. The colors were inverted, shadows were white, light was black. It was a headache made manifest. "The Necro Star," Ash whispered. "It's rewriting the laws of physics." "It's rewriting meaning," Mina corrected, tapping her brush against her chin. "I tried to send a scout team in. They came back speaking backwards. They forgot their own names. It's a cognitive hazard, Ash. You can't fight it with Pokemon moves because you can't trust what you're seeing." "I have to go in," Ash said. "The Altar of the Sun is on the other side. If I don't secure it, Koa will use it to bring the main body of the entity through." "You'll lose your mind," Mina said bluntly, "unless you have an anchor." She stood up, snapping her sketchbook shut. She turned to face him. Her eyes, usually half-lidded and dreamy, were sharp. "I'm coming with you." "Mina, it's dangerous. I'm an artist, Ash," she interrupted, strapping a heavy canvas bag to her back. "I deal in perception. I know how to tell the difference between a lie and the truth, even when the lie looks prettier. You're the muscle. I'm the goggles." Ash looked at her. He saw the determination. He nodded. "Stay close." They entered the distortion. The moment they crossed the threshold, Ash's sense of balance vanished. Up was left. Down was the smell of burning toast. He stumbled, reaching out for a wall that felt like warm velvet instead of stone. "Don't trust your inner ear," Mina's voice cut through the disorientation. "Trust your eyes, but only the center of your vision. Peripheral is a trap." They walked through a nightmare. Creatures that looked like Jongmo-o but made of glass skittered across the ceiling. The wind whispered Ash's name, but in his mother's voice. "You're a failure, Ash," the wind sighed. "You left them all. Butterfree, Pidgeot, Greninja, they hate you." Ash gritted his teeth. "It's not real. It feels real," the wind whispered. Suddenly, the ground beneath them dissolved. Ash fell into a void of starry darkness. He was falling forever. He saw Pikachu turning into dust in his arms. He saw Lily crying over his grave. "Ash!" A splash of cold, pink paint hit him in the face. Ash gasped, blinking. The void shattered. He was standing on solid ground. Mina was standing over him, holding a large paintbrush dripping with pink sludge. Her Smeargle was beside her, looking smug. "It's a cognitive loop," Mina explained, wiping paint from her cheek. "It tries to trap you in your worst fear. I had to recontextualize the scene." "You painted me." Ash wiped the goo from his eyes. It smelled like pecha berries. "I painted reality back on top of you," she smiled, a small, tired thing. "Come on. The center is ahead." They reached the central clearing of the canyon, and there he was. Koa floated in the air. But he wasn't Koa anymore. His skin was obsidian black, cracking to reveal blinding white light underneath. His tactical gear had fused with his flesh, creating a jagged, carapace-like armor. He had no eyes, just burning white sockets. "The Master of Trials," Koa's voice boomed. It sounded like two grinding stones. "You are small. So small against the infinite." "Koa!" Ash shouted. "Fight it. This thing is using you." "I am the Zenith," Koa replied. He raised a hand. "I will show you the truth." He clenched his fist. The world unraveled. Ash watched as Mina disintegrated into butterflies. He watched as his own hands turned to sand. He felt his memories being erased one by one. Who is Pikachu? What is a Pokemon? What is my name? No, Ash thought. I am. You are Ash Ketchum, a voice said. Not a whisper. A statement. Mina wasn't dead. She was standing right next to him. She had thrown a canister of fairy lock dust into the air. The glittering particles formed a geometric grid around them, stabilizing the space. Smeargle. Sketch, Mina commanded. Smeargle raised its tail. It didn't copy a move. It copied the concept of the distortion. It painted a black hole in the air. Use their own logic against them, Mina yelled. Ash, hit the painting. Ash didn't understand the physics, but he understood the opening. Pikachu. Iron Tail. Smash it. Pikachu leapt, his tail glowing metallic silver. He slammed into the painted black hole. The image shattered like glass. The feedback loop snapped. The illusion broke. Koa screamed, clutching his head. The obsidian armor cracked further. He dropped to the ground, kneeling. Now, Ash. The Z crystal. Mina pointed to Koa's chest. Embedded in the armor was a shard of the Necrostar, the source of his power. Ash sprinted forward. The ground tried to grab his ankles, turning into mud, then tentacles. Rabombi. Pollen Puff. Mina directed her Pokémon to blast the path clear, creating stepping stones of solid light. Ash vaulted off the last stone. He tackled Koa. Contact burned. Touching Koa was like touching a dry ice block. Get out. Koa rasped, a flicker of his human self surfacing. It's too loud. Let go of it, Ash yelled, grabbing the shard. He pulled. The aura screamed. His hands sizzled. He channeled everything. His bond with Greninja, his training with Lucario, the lingering ghost energy from Acerola. With a roar, he ripped the shard free. The explosion of light was blinding. When Ash opened his eyes, the canyon was just a canyon. The rocks were gray. The sky was blue. Koa lay unconscious on the ground, his skin pale, the black armor gone, leaving him looking small and broken in his torn tactical gear. Ash sat back, breathing hard. He looked at the shard in his hand. It was dissolving, turning into harmless gray dust. Mina flopped down beside him. She was covered in paint, sweat, and dust. Her canvas bag was empty. That, Mina panted, was the worst art critique I've ever had. Ash laughed. It was a dry, hacking sound, but it was real. You saved my brain back there. I just added some color, she shrugged. She looked at him, her artistic gaze tracing the lines of his face. You have a very strong composition, Ash. You don't break easily. I felt like I was breaking, he admitted, looking at his trembling hands. Mina reached out. She took his hand, turning it palm up. She pulled a small marker from her pocket. Gently, she drew a small flower on his palm, a simple, childish daisy. An anchor, she said softly. Next time you feel like you're fading, look at that. Remember that you're real, that you're here. Ash looked at the drawing, then at Mina. Her eyes were soft, stripped of their usual detached irony. Thanks, Mina. Don't mention it, champion. She leaned back, closing her eyes. Now, how are we going to carry Mr. World Eater back to civilization? Ash looked at Koa. We signal for pickup, and then. He looked up at the ridge of the canyon. The altar of the sun was visible now. And above it, the sky was cracking again. Not a distortion this time. A genuine, physical breach. It's not over, Ash said, standing up. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a cold dread. This was just the scout, the vanguard. He helped Mina up. The real invasion starts now. As if on cue, a beam of pure light shot down from the sky, striking the altar. The ground shook, knocking them both off balance. The final battle had arrived. Chapter 5 End. Chapter 6, The Broken Sky. The altar of the sun did not look like a ruin anymore. It looked like an open wound in the universe. Ash stood at the base of the massive stone staircase, the wind whipping his hair into a frenzy. The beam of light that had struck the altar wasn't fading. It was widening, a pillar of blinding white radiance that pierced the clouds and seemed to hold up the collapsing sky. Around him, the remaining forces of the Alola defense gathered. It was a ragtag army, battered and bruised, but standing. Lana, her arm bandaged, stood with her Araquanid, flanked by a battalion of water-type trainers from Akala. Mallow was there, passing out revitalization herbs, her Sarina organizing a triage unit. Lily, clad in a protective ether suit, was calibrating a portable field generator with Gladian. Acerola floated near Nanu, who looked more tired than any man had a right to be, polishing his revolver. And Mina, still covered in paint, was sketching battle plans in the dirt for the other captains. This is it, Ash said. His voice wasn't loud, but in the eerie silence before the storm, everyone heard him. He turned to face them. He looked at each of them, his friends, his rivals, his partners. Whatever comes out of that light, Ash said, it wants to take this world. It wants to silence the islands. But we are the noise. We are the storm. He raised his fist. For Alola. For Alola. The shout echoed off the canyon walls, a defiant roar against the cosmic silence. Then, the sky broke. The pillar of light shattered. From the breach, shapes descended. Not hundreds. Thousands. They were constructs of light and obsidian, fragments of the Necrostar given form. They looked like jagged prisms, floating geometric nightmares that fired lasers of pure energy. Incoming! Nanu yelled. Open fire! The air exploded into chaos. Hyper beams, hydro pumps, and flamethrowers tore into the sky, meeting the descending prism drones. The sound was deafening. Ash didn't stay on the ground. Dragonite, Charizard, with me. He released his two flyers. He mounted Dragonite, while Charizard banked to his left. They launched into the air, flying straight into the teeth of the swarm. Dragonclaw. Use the momentum. Dragonite spun, his claws glowing green, smashing through 3 prisms in a single pass. Charizard unleashed a stream of fire that melted the obsidian shells of the attackers. But for every drone they destroyed, 2 more poured from the breach. And then, the heavy hitter arrived. Descending slowly from the center of the breach was a form terrifyingly familiar. Necrozma. But it wasn't the Necrozma they knew. It was massive, easily the size of a skyscraper. It was composed of shifting, unstable light, its form constantly trying to reassemble itself into the ultra-dragon shape but failing, glitching like a corrupted file. It was in pain. It was starving. It roared, a sound of static that shattered glass for miles. It's going for the ley lines. Lily's voice crackled in Ash's earpiece. It's trying to drink the island's Z power directly from the source. Not if I can help it, Ash gritted his teeth. He tapped his Z-ring. Solgaleo, Lunala. I call upon the Covenant. He didn't have the Nebby whistle. He didn't need it. He used the sheer force of his will, projecting his call through the Master's mantle. Hear me. The sky flashed. 2 portals opened. Solgaleo, the sun, roared onto the battlefield, its metal mane shining like molten gold. Lunala, the moon, screeched, its wings spreading a ghostly midnight glow. They flanked the massive Necrozma entity. Together, Ash yelled, diving Dragonite toward the giant's head. Solgaleo fired a Sunsteel strike, a meteor of kinetic energy. Lunala unleashed a Moongeist beam. The attacks slammed into the giant Necrozma, pushing it back toward the rift. The giant recoiled, but then it lashed out. A hand of light swatted Solgaleo out of the sky. The legendary lion crashed into the canyon wall, causing a rockslide that buried half the battlefield. Solgaleo! Ash screamed. The giant turned its gaze on Ash. It recognized him. The net. The obstacle. It fired a prismatic laser. Dodge it! Dragonite banked hard, but the beam grazed his wing. The dragon roared in pain, spinning out of control. Return! Ash recalled Dragonite mid-fall. He was free falling from 3,000 feet. Charizard! Charizard dove, catching Ash on his back just yards from the ground. They pulled up, skimming the heads of the fighting trainers. Ash! Mallow screamed from the triage tent, you're bleeding. Ash looked down. His side was wet. Shrapnel from the prism laser had pierced his vest. He ignored it. I'm fine, he lied. Charizard, take me to Solgaleo. They landed near the rockslide. Solgaleo was struggling to rise, its metallic armor dented. Ash jumped off Charizard and ran to the lion's face. He placed his hands on its snout. Get up, Ash whispered, pouring his aura into the beast. We're not done. Solgaleo growled low, drawing strength from Ash. It stood, shaking off the boulders. But the giant Necrozma was charging its main weapon. The light in its chest was building to a catastrophic level. It was aiming not at them, but at the ground. At the core of the island. If that fires, Lily's voice was panicked, it will crack the tectonic plate. Pony Island will sink. Ash looked at the weapon. He looked at his friends fighting in the mud. He looked at Solgaleo. We have to absorb it, Ash said. Solgaleo looked at him. The lion understood. It was a suicide run. I have the Z-ring, Ash said, holding up his wrist. The Z-crystal he had taken from Koa. The black one. was glowing violently. I can channel it. But I need you to be the vessel. Solgaleo nodded. Ash climbed onto Solgaleo's back. Let's go. Searing sunrays smash. Solgaleo leapt. It ran up the vertical beam of light like a ramp. They were charging directly into the barrel of the gun. Ash, what are you doing? Lana screamed over the comms. Ending it. The giant Necrozma fired. A beam of pure destruction, wide as a city block, descended. Now, Ash roared. He slammed his Z-ring against Solgaleo's mane. He didn't just trigger the move. He emptied himself. He poured every ounce of his life force, his aura, his history into the crystal. Solgaleo became a comet. The two beams collided in midair. Golden fire met blinding white light. The sound vanished. The world went silent. There was only pressure. Ash felt his skin burning. He felt the Z-ring shattering against his wrist. The crystal cracked. The feedback loop was tearing him apart. Hold on, he told himself. Just a little longer. He saw faces. His mother, Pikachu, the girls. For them. With a final, primal scream, Ash pushed. Solgaleo broke through. The comet pierced the beam, traveling up its length, and slammed directly into the chest of the giant Necrozma. Boom. The explosion was visible from space. A ring of light expanded outward, clearing the clouds, vaporizing the prism drones instantly. The giant Necrozma shrieked as its form was shattered. It dissolved into millions of motes of light, sucked back into the rift. Ash and Solgaleo were thrown backward by the blast. They fell. Ash slipped from Solgaleo's back. He was unconscious before he hit the air. He drifted, a ragdoll in the wind, plummeting toward the unforgiving rocks below. Ash. 4 voices screamed his name, but it was Charizard who got there first. The fire-type caught his trainer, cradling him against his chest, and used his wings to glide to a rough landing. The battlefield went silent. Lily, Lana, Mallow, Acerola, and Mina ran. They ignored the heat, the debris, the exhaustion. They ran to the center of the crater where Charizard lay. Charizard uncurled his wings. Ash lay there. His clothes were shredded. His skin was burned. His Z-ring was gone, reduced to dust. He wasn't moving. Mallow got there first. She fell to her knees, checking for a pulse. She looked up, tears streaming down her face covered in soot. It's weak. But it's there. A collective sob broke from the group. Lily collapsed against Lana. Acerola bowed her head. Mina dropped her brush. The sky above was clear. The rift was gone. The sun, the real sun, was beginning to set, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. Solgaleo limped over, nudging Ash's hand with its nose. It let out a soft, mournful sound. Ash Ketchum, the boy who wanted to be a master, had saved the world again. But this time, the world wasn't sure if he would wake up to see it. Chapter 6 End. Chapter 7. Dawn of the Zenith. The universe was not black. It was a shifting, iridescent gray, like the inside of a pearl. Ash floated. He had no body, no weight, no pain. He was simply a point of consciousness drifting in the wake of the explosion. In front of him, or perhaps inside him, space being relative here, pulsed the entity. It wasn't the jagged, terrifying giant that had attacked Pony Island. It was a small, dense sphere of absolute nothingness. A singularity of hunger. Ash looked at it. He didn't feel fear. He felt a profound, aching sadness. You're starving, Ash projected his thought. The entity shuddered. It didn't speak in words, but in concepts. Cold. Empty. Need heat. Need light. It wasn't malicious. It was a cosmic apex predator that had eaten everything in its own dimension and had clawed its way into Alola simply to survive. Koa had tried to leash a hurricane. Ash had tried to fight a forest fire. Ash looked at his own spirit. He was glowing with the residual energy of Solgaleo, the Z crystals, and the prayers of the islanders. He was a battery of infinite potential. He could use that power to destroy the entity, to snuff it out like a candle. But that wasn't what a master did. A master didn't just win battles. A master understood the Pokémon. Even the ones that looked like monsters. Ash reached out. Take it, he whispered. He pushed the energy away from himself. He unspooled the Z power, the aura, the connection to the Tapas. He fed it into the singularity. Eat. Be full. And go home. The entity paused. Then, it surged forward, wrapping around Ash's offering. It drank the light. The gray void turned blinding white. The hunger vanished, replaced by a sensation of warm satiety. Full, the entity echoed. Warm. It began to drift away, receding back into the depths of the ultra-space, no longer a devourer, but a dormant star. As the light faded, Ash felt himself dimming. The connection to the Z-ring, that electric hum he had felt in his wrist for years, snapped. The silence that followed was deafening. He was falling again. But this time, he wasn't falling into darkness. He was falling toward the smell of sea salt and grilling berries. He woke up to the sound of a heart monitor. Beep. 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 Ash opened his eyes. The ceiling was wood, not tile. A ceiling fan spun lazily above him. Sunlight streamed through the open window, carrying the scent of hibiscus. He's awake. The voice was high and tearful. Before Ash could focus, a yellow blur slammed into his chest. Pikapi. Ash winced, a sharp pain shooting through his ribs, but he managed a weak smile, bringing his hand up to scratch Pikachu's ears. Hey, buddy, Ash rasped. His voice sounded like he'd swallowed gravel. Careful. A hand gently pulled Pikachu back. Mallow. She loomed over him, her eyes red-rimmed but smiling. You've been in a coma for 3 days, Ash. Don't let the rat break your ribs again. Ash blinked, looking around the room. They were all there. Mallow, adjusting his IV drip. Lana, leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, a fresh bandage on her cheek. Lily, sitting in the chair by the bed, clutching a book so hard her knuckles were white. Acerola, floating cross-legged in the air near the ceiling, playing with a ghost doll. Mina, sketching him from the corner. 3 days? Ash tried to sit up, but his body felt like lead. He looked at his right arm. It was heavily bandaged from wrist to elbow. The feedback overload fried the nerves, Lily said softly, following his gaze. The doctors say you'll have full mobility, but... Ash unwrapped the top of the bandage. The skin underneath was scarred with intricate, lightning-like patterns. Lichtenberg figures burned into his flesh where the Z-ring used to sit. He tried to summon his aura. He tried to reach for that deep well of power he had tapped into against the Guzzlord. Nothing. It was dry. It's gone, Ash whispered. The room went silent. You burned it out, Acerola said from the ceiling, her voice strangely devoid of her usual playfulness. You gave your light to the Star Eater so it wouldn't eat us. That's a fair trade, I think. Ash stared at his scarred wrist. He wasn't the master of Z-moves anymore. He couldn't summon Solgaleo with a thought. He was just Ash. He looked up at them. He expected to see pity. Instead, he saw reverence. Lana walked over to the bed. She didn't say anything. She just reached out and poked him hard in the forehead. Ow, Ash complained. You idiot, Lana said, her voice thick with emotion. You saved everyone. Who cares about the magic tricks? You're still the strongest trainer I know. Besides, Mallow added, placing a bowl of warm broth on the tray table. You can't leave now. You have a lot of paperwork to do. Being the savior of Alola comes with administrative duties. Ash looked at the soup, then at Pikachu, then at the girls. A warmth spread through his chest that had nothing to do with aura. I'm hungry, he said. Lily laughed, a sound that broke the tension like a glass bell. Of course you are. 2 weeks later, Iki Town was burning, not with fire, but with life. The grand festival of the Zenith was in full swing. Torches lined the wooden platforms, drums pounded a rhythm that synced with the heartbeat, and people, humans and Pokemon alike, danced in the square. Ash sat on the steps of the main shrine, watching the celebration. He wore the traditional ceremonial robes of the island champion. Loose, white fabric with a sash of woven red and gold. His right arm was exposed, the lightning scars visible. He didn't hide them. Hala sat beside him, drinking from a coconut. The people are happy, the kahuna said. They feel safe. For the first time in years. Is the rift fully sealed? Ash asked, watching a group of children playing with a docile Turtonator. Sealed and scarred over, Hala nodded. The Tapas have returned. They are quiet, but they are watching. They approve of your sacrifice. I didn't do it for their approval, Ash muttered. I know. Hala chuckled deeply. That is why they approve. Ash looked toward the edge of the village, where a small, guarded hut stood, and Koa. Broken, Hala said grimly. The entity used him like a puppet. His mind is fractured. He remembers nothing of the last year. He sits in his cell and stares at the sun. Let him see it, Ash said quietly. Don't lock him in the dark. The dark is what broke him in the first place. Hala looked at Ash with a new respect. You have grown, Ash Ketchum. You are not just a fighter anymore. You are a king. I'm just a guy who likes Pokemon, Hala. If you say so. Hala stood up, groaning slightly. I must attend to the feast. Don't stay here all night. You have guests waiting. Hala gestured toward the path leading down to the beach. Ash stood up. His legs were strong again. Pikachu hopped onto his shoulder, nuzzling his cheek. Ready for a walk, buddy? Pika. The beach was quiet, the noise of the festival fading into a distant, rhythmic thrum. The moon was full, casting a silver road across the water. They were waiting for him by the tide line. Lily, Lana, Mallow, Acerola, and Mina. They had ditched their festival formal wear for simpler clothes. They were sitting on a large drift log, passing a bottle of sparkling pineapple juice between them. When Ash approached, they didn't stand on ceremony. Took you long enough, Mina said, sketching in the sand with a stick. The lighting was almost perfect 5 minutes ago. Hala wanted to talk philosophy, Ash said, sitting down on the sand in front of them. He leaned back on his hands, looking out at the ocean. Philosophy is boring, Acerola yawned, floating upside down next to him. Let's talk about how you're going to fix the roof of the professor's house. Charizard sat on it. I'll fix it, Ash promised. There was a comfortable silence. It wasn't the awkward silence of unsaid things. It was the silence of people who had seen the end of the world together and survived. Lily slid off the log and sat next to him on his right. She leaned her head on his shoulder. It was a natural, fluid movement. My mother wants you to come to Ether Paradise, Lily said softly. To consult on the new conservation protocols. She says. She trusts your judgment more than hers. I'll come, Ash said. He looked at his scarred hand. I can't battle like I used to. Not for a while. Maybe teaching isn't so bad. You, a teacher? Lana scoffed, sitting on his left. She bumped his shoulder with hers. Your lesson plan would be, run forward and yell loudly. It works, doesn't it? Ash grinned. It worked, Lana admitted, a small smile playing on her lips. She rested her hand on his knee. Mallow leaned forward from the log, handing him a skewer of grilled seafood. You're staying, then? You're not. Running off to the next region? Ash took the food. He looked at the horizon. Usually, at the end of a journey, he felt the itch. The need to go. To find the next gym, the next league. But looking at the sea now, he didn't feel restless, he felt anchored. He looked at Mallow's hopeful face. At Lily's quiet strength. At Lana's fierce loyalty. At Acerola and Mina's strange, accepting presence. He realized that being a Pokemon master wasn't about conquering the world. It was about protecting your corner of it. I'm staying, Ash said firmly. The tension in the group evaporated instantly. Good, Mallow beamed. Because I need a taste tester for the new menu. And I need a model, Mina added. And I need someone to scare the tourists away from the ruins, Acerola chimed in. Ash laughed. It was a full, rich sound that echoed over the water. I'm yours, he said, for as long as you'll have me. He didn't specify who he was talking to. He didn't have to. They knew. He belonged to the island. He belonged to the moment. And in a way that transcended romance or friendship, he belonged to them. Lily took his scarred hand, intertwining her fingers with his. Lana leaned her head on his other shoulder. Mallow rested her chin on top of his head from behind. Ash closed his eyes, listening to the waves. The Z-ring was gone. The power of the sun was gone. But as he sat there, surrounded by the people who loved him, Ash Ketchum felt more powerful than he ever had in his life. The long night was over. The sun had risen. And for the first time, the Master of Trials was finally home. Chapter 7 End.